Everyone enjoys a good book or movie plot twist, right? A story twist causes characters to reflect on the circumstances, often years later. We all have blind spots and have preconceived notions about how the world is, which is where the psychology comes in. What about in real life, though? Here are 3 unexpected plot turns from real life that will leave you reeling. On March 17, 1942, Gacy was born in Chicago, Illinois. Gacy, the son of Danish and Polish immigrants, and his siblings were raised by an alcoholic father who beat them with a razor strap when he thought they had misbehaved. Additionally, Gacy's mother was physically abused by his father. Karen, Gacy's sister, recalled that Gacy wouldn't cry and that the siblings had grown tougher as a result of the beatings. Due to his congenital heart problem, which was viewed by his father as yet another failing, Gacy experienced further estrangement at school, where he was unable to play with other kids. He later became aware of his attraction to guys and went through an intense sexual struggle. In the 1960s, Gacy managed a fast food franchise. In the 1970s, he established himself as a self-made builder and Democratic precinct commander in the Chicago suburbs. Gacy was well-liked in his neighborhood and was active in political organizations, the Jaycees civic group, and cultural groups. He had 2 biological children in addition to 2 stepdaughters, and he was twice married and divorced. Gacy was a member of the Jolly Joker Clown Club in the Chicago region, and he routinely performed as Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown at kids' events, charity events, and other occasions while decked out as a clown. Sometimes, the killer clown would use false promises of work in the construction industry to seduce his victims. He would then kidnap them, torture them, and eventually strangle the majority of them with his hands or a rope. Years later, while under observation, Gacy spoke with detectives about his employment as a clown and said, "Clowns can get away with murder." Gacy was sentenced to 10 years in jail in 1968 after being found guilty of sexually assaulting 2 teenage boys. He was arrested once more the following year after a different youngster accused Gacy of sexual assault after he had been freed on parole in the summer of 1970. When the youngster was absent from the trial, the accusations were withdrawn. By the middle of the 1970s, 2 more young men had accused Gacy of rape, and the police had begun questioning him regarding other people's disappearances. During this time in his life, which he characterized as his cruising years, Gacy committed the majority of his killings. Robert Peast, then 15 years old, vanished on December 11, 1978, and his mother last saw him in a pharmacy. 10 days later, Gacy's home in Norwood Park, Illinois, was searched by authorities, and they found evidence of his involvement in a number of crimes, including murder. It was later determined that Timothy McCoy, a 16-year-old boy, was the victim of Gacy's first known murder in 1972. After extensive police inquiries and surveillance, Gacy eventually admitted to killing roughly 30 individuals. There have been persistent worries throughout the years that Gacy may be accountable for the murders of additional people whose bodies have not yet been located. 8 bodies were discovered in Gacy's home in 1978, but they could not be recognized. James Jimmy Byron Hackinson, 16, was one of Gacy's unnamed victims. Cook County investigators used DNA evidence to identify him. Although she lacked dental records, Hackinson's mother had gotten in touch with officials to inquire about whether her son was one of Gacy's victims. In 2017, additional family members sent DNA samples, and officials discovered an instant match to victim number 24. The trial for Gacy began on February 6th and ended with a conviction for 33 murders. He received 21 natural life sentences and 12 death sentences. Gacy spent nearly 15 years in prison at the Illinois Menard Correctional Center. He appealed his conviction and gave conflicting accounts of the killings during interviews. Later, he refuted the accusations and set up a 900 phone number with a 12-minute recorded statement, reiterating his innocence. On May 10, 1994, at the Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois, he passed away via lethal injection. The identical twins, Stephen and Robert Sprahalski, were born in 1955. They always possessed the twin instinct, whereby they could tell what the other twin was doing or feeling. The circumstances of their lives suggest that they developed twin instincts to a completely new degree. The sibling who made the claim that he was the first murderer in the Sapolsky family was Stephen Sapolsky. In 1971, when he was just shy of 17 years old, he committed his first murder. He used a hammer to strike Roland Ripley, a middle-aged proprietor of a nearby store, in the head, killing him. He then repeatedly stabbed him to make sure he was dead. He quickly admitted that he had slain Ripley when the police detained him for the crime. He did, however, assert that Ripley had slain Sapolsky because Ripley had made unwanted homosexual attempts toward the minor. He allegedly claimed in an interview, "If I kill someone, I kill them for a reason." He was found guilty of manslaughter, received prison time, but was spared life in prison, probably because he was still a kid. The murder would not, however, be his only conviction in his criminal career. He would eventually serve additional prison terms for offenses like robbery, parole violations, and kidnappings. Investigators frequently told the opinion that he became accustomed to life in prison and likely looked for excuses to return there each time he was released. This well-known phenomenon or pattern of behavior is referred to as institutionalization. Robert, Stephen's sibling, did not develop a killing compulsion at an early age like his brother did. Only when he was roughly 35 years old in the early 1990s would he commit his first murder. He was already a well-known street hustler and crook who was regularly behind bars, though not for murder. At one point over the years, he and his brother were housed in the same prison. Robert has a crack cocaine addiction in addition to other drugs. Maureen Armstrong, a sex worker, was his first victim. He killed her in December 1990. Investigators repeatedly questioned him as he was paroling the area around the crime scene at the time, but he was never charged with any crime. Electrical cables were discovered wrapped around Armstrong's neck, proving that she had been strangled to death. A little over 6 months later, he killed Adrienne Berger, his own girlfriend. Robert had yet another narrow escape because by the time her body was found in her flat, it had deteriorated so terribly that the authorities were unable to pinpoint the cause of death. Soon after that, another murder occurred. Similar to his brother's actions 20 years prior, Robert this time used a hammer to bludgeon a guy named Charles Grant to death. It's possible that the cause was the same but applied to a different situation. When Robert and Grant got into a fight while Robert was working as a sex worker, Robert ended up killing Grant as a result. Before killing again in 2005, Robert went 14 years without killing. The farmstead in Hinterkaifeck was deserted. It was around an hour's drive from Munich, close to the Bavarian town of Grobern. Victoria Gabrielle, 35, lived in the woods with her parents, Andreas Gruber and Kazilla Gruber, and their 2 children, Kazilla, 7, and Josef, 2. The family was renowned for their peace and quiet. When Kazilla, the youngest kid, failed to show up for school on April 1st, 1922, the neighbors started to worry. Every member of the family missed Victoria's choral performance at church as well. On April 3rd, Kazilla missed school, and their neighborhood post office started to get backed up with mail. On April 4th, the family's neighbors started looking into the situation. Lorenz Schlittbauer, a nearby farmer, led the search team. The Hinterkaifeck murders continue to rank among the most eerie and well-known unsolved crimes in Germany. Dr. Johann Baptist Aumüller's autopsies paint a horrific picture of their wounds. The older Kazilla had 7 head blows, a shattered skull, and symptoms of strangulation. Andres' cheekbones sprang out from the torn flesh, and his face was covered with blood. Additionally, Victoria's skull had been broken. The farm girl, Maria Baumgartner, and the young Josef were both fatally struck in the farmhouse. The sheets used to cover them, the hay, and the bodies were all undamaged. By feeding the animals and starting the fires, the murderer was evidently present at the property for several days. The former maid stated that she felt nervous and heard unusual noises coming from the attic, leading her to believe the house was haunted. Although Andres trusted her, he told his neighbors about weird occurrences days before the murder. There were 2 stairs leading from the forest to the property, as well as a newspaper that had not been purchased, located in his home. There were impure, unmarked snow and could only be in one direction. Hinterkaifeck was unsure of their affiliation. The disappearance of one of the family's keys just before the murder was even stranger. These peculiar particulars, together with noises coming from the attic, a smoking chimney that was visible for the days following the crime, and possible living quarters for an intruder inside the property, from a horrifying picture of an intruder. Suspicion subsequently fell on various family members as a result of some domestic strife at home. In World War I, Victoria's husband was killed. Josef's mother and father were still unknown. Victoria was dating Lorenz Schlittbauer, the guy who organized the search team that discovered the bodies. Both had referred to Josef as their child in public. When Andre stepped in, the relationship came to an end, and they decided to get married. Lorenz claimed a different woman, but tragically, he and his wife miscarried a few weeks later. Lorenz had been named by police as a suspect in the deaths of Victoria and her family members. During the initial investigation, he acted casually and was able to find his way around the farm. The police weren't able to locate him at the crime scene with certainty, though. Carl Gabriel was seen as another potential candidate. However, this was quickly ruled out. The idea that Josef was the offspring of Victoria's father, Andres, who had killed the entire family before using the machete on their own, was another. Victoria and Andres could not have killed themselves because the bodies had not been self-inflicted with injuries. It was obvious that the culprits had a personal grudge against the Grubers, either individually or collectively. The police at the time were at a loss for explanations, and the case was ultimately closed. In the previous 95 years, the Hinterkaifeck case has been reopened numerous times, and even clairvoyants have had the opportunity to view it. The murders of the Gruber family and their maid were detailed in Peter Loschner's book, Hinterkaifeck, Spuren eines Mysteriosen Verbrecherns. The skulls were taken to Munich for additional investigation. The skulls, however, were misplaced during World War II and were never found again. The original evidence from the crime scene was either lost or too old to hold any mysteries. The Hinterkaifeck murders, however, were recognized as a cold case by the Fürstenfeldbruck Police Academy in 2007. Due to the paucity of available evidence and subsequent fatalities, they were unable to pin down the culprit. It is doubtful that the public will ever learn who or why the murders were committed. Hence, this notion is kept secret out of respect for the living families of individuals who were involved in the crime. What are your thoughts about this twisted case? Let us know what you think in the comments section below, and subscribe to our channel for more videos. We hope to see you in the next video.